The dawn of civilization. Primitive. Dangerous. Exciting. The handwriting is on the wall. If the human race is ever going to amount to anything, it needs
the most civilized caveman I have ever seen.
Look who's come out of his cave.
So coming from our collective caves to your dank dwellings, it's Matt here from Cave Dweller Music. And what is the one thing that ties all metal fans together? You know, it is our love of beer, but also patches. And I'm pretty sure everyone has a battle jacket or a vest. I'll have a chat to our guest about that because that's something that I do want to get to the bottom of. But joining us today, we've got Simon from Pull the Plug. First and foremost, I appreciate you taking the time out and having a chat to us.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me.
Now, I did mention it briefly there, and this is something that's been plaguing me for ages. I ran a zine a little while back, and I was having a chat to a few of the guys that I know that are in a thrash band, and, you know, just trying to work out what they've got lined up in the near future. I was like, what do you guys have up the sleeves of your battle jacket? And the response kind of surprised me, and I've been umming and ahhing about it ever since. The guys were like, dude, what the fuck are you talking about? Battle jackets don't have sleeves. Being the doyen of patches, shall we say, what are your thoughts on that? Do battle jackets or battle vests have sleeves? Can you go the sleeveless one? Where the leather jackets fit into that? I reckon we can start from there and see what we reckon.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess technically a battle vest doesn't have sleeves, but a battle jacket would. I mean, for me, there's no rules, right? Whatever. You see all kinds of things. There's some hilarious pictures of people who have put back patches onto a Hawaiian shirt, for example. And it's just, you know, I mean, if that's what makes you tick, then go for it, right? Whatever people want to do. I just think there's no real rules to it. If you love it and you want to rock it, then go for it.
I have seen people do the Hawaiian shirt. That's a good one. Flannelette shirts are another one that I've seen with people in the back patches. So, and jeans. What is with like cross punkers and putting like patches on their jeans?
Yeah. I mean, you can put them anywhere, right? I haven't done a pair of pants. I've got a pair of shorts that's got patches all over it, but I've never done pants. I've got so many patches now. I'm thinking, you know, the only thing I could do with them all is make a big quilt or something. So that's probably my next major project at some point is I'll do a battle quilt.
That's a good way of doing it. That brought something back into my mind that I hadn't thought about for ages. A mate of mine was going to do that, except with band shirts. Like he was just going to cut off the sleeves and make a giant quilt out of all this like different assortment of band shirts.
Yeah, nice.
All right,
yeah, it's a good idea.
I mean, like, and how many patches do you reckon you've got lying around at the moment? Obviously, you've got the entire like storeroom of Pull the Plug, but personally, how many do you reckon you've got lying around in just in storage?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I keep a few of everything that we make, and I think we're up at around, I don't know, probably over 800, maybe 900 patches that we've made at this point. So I've just got tons of them. And then there's ones that we didn't make that I was collecting before I started making them. So most of those ones have ended up on a vest at some point. But and I mean, since we started making them ourselves, I don't really buy them anymore. I just make them and then I have them, sort of thing. So I've kind of, I guess that makes my wife happy that I'm not spending money on patches myself anymore. But I've got too many to even know what to do with at this point. But I'm just so addicted to them. I just love them. So, and it's super fun to make them. So I just keep rocking them out.
Well, the other thing as well, you're now making money from patches rather than spending money on them. So ultimately, you're coming up tops no matter how you look at it.
Yeah, I guess it's a trade-off. I mean, yeah, I've got one of my vests is it's all vintage, so it's all 90s death metal patches, and I made that maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago now, and like even then, some of those vintage patches weren't cheap to make, right? So that vest is, I don't know, probably worth what a small car would cost, basically. So yeah, I guess maybe I'm breaking even at this point. Who knows?
Well, let's actually get into Pull the Plug itself. You guys started in 2018 out of Newcastle, and you've got around, I think you've got 4 people in the crew now, including yourself. So how do you get started in making patches? You said you've been, collecting patches even before this started. Was this just kind of a moment where you went, oh, there's, this old patch that I haven't seen floating around for a while. I'm going to make it myself. And then it went from there?
Yeah. Yeah, basically. I mean, I have a bolt thrower tribute jacket, and I think the first patch that I ever made was like trying to fill that jacket out because I couldn't find, I bought every bolt thrower patch that I could find, sort of thing, and then it was like, my jacket's not full enough. What am I going to do? And somebody gave me the name of a manufacturer, and I thought, okay, I'll give it a whirl and see how it goes. And so I mean, that was before Pull the Plug patches, obviously, and it was just a bootleg that I made for myself, and there are a few copies extra, so I gave those to friends and sold a few off, whatever. And then just from there, it was kind of thinking, oh yeah, this is pretty fun to actually make them, and it just kind of grew organically. Initially, starting Pull the Plug patches, it was kind of like, well, if I'm going to do this, if I'm going to make a bunch of patches, might as well give it a name, sort of thing. And obviously you've got death on your vest there, and Pull the Plug, off of the album Leprosy. Leprosy was the first death metal album I ever bought. I think I was about 12 or 13 years old, and fell in love with death metal from there. And the story behind wanting to make patches was I wanted to make an all old school death metal vest. So I have the vintage one, but I was making one with newer patches as well, right? And it was once again, just thinking the stuff that I wanted on my vest wasn't available. So bands like Ill Disposed and Sickening Gore and Asphyx were some of the first patches that we made, and I think there were 16 of them in the first batch that we did, and it was all just stuff that I really wanted on my own vest and couldn't find anywhere. So I was just connected with, it was actually, I think, the manufacturer who connected me with my designer that I use now, Robert. He does 99% of our designs. We've got another guy, Chalo, who does the videos and does a lot of the advertising and stuff for us, but he does a few designs here and there as well, but mostly they're done by Robert. And it was just, really sort of organic, just interested in the music, interested in having things for my own vest, and it just kind of ballooned from there.
You hear that story as well with a lot of people that make, they make zines, they make stuff like what we're doing here at Cave Dweller. It's kind of sitting there and thinking like, well, fuck, man, like there's stuff that I want and I can't find it anywhere else.
Yeah.
There's nothing really stopping you from going out and making it or doing it on your own.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was the process. And of course, at that point I thought, okay, if we're going to do this and I'm going to release these, so the minimum from the manufacturer was 50 copies. And, I need one for my vest and I want one for my collection, sort of thing. And, what am I going to do with the rest of them, right? Give one to the designer, give a few to a friends. And so I ended up selling the rest of them. And it was, if you're going to do that, you might as well start a website and whatever, so people can find out about it. So it just really went from there. And I've been a death metal fan since, almost as long as I can remember, sort of thing. Again, Leprosy was the first album I got, and I think I was 12 years old when that came out, and remember seeing it on the store shelves. And I've just been, I guess for some people, they say you grow out of that kind of music. I've had friends who say that, but for me, that's not the case, right? It's like, I love the same stuff that I listened to when I was 14 years old.
And that's a really cool tie-in as well. Something that I watched the little Banger document, Banger TV part that you were in. And that's something that I noticed as well on the website as soon as I sort of noticed the difference between the two. all the patches that you guys have, be it ones that you've made previously, ones you've got coming up, or ones that are out at the moment, you've got the link to the band so people can like go through and, you know, you can't check out much stuff in the record store with all the lockdowns and everything. But you've got that link there where people can sort of trace through and find new bands.
Yeah, I mean, that's the main part of it, right? The patch is just a representation of the music itself. So it's the music that matters most. And it's, you know, half of the point of doing this is so people can discover new music, or, I mean, most of it's not new either, right? It's old stuff that has been long forgotten about. And I guess, yeah, I mean, people could Google it easy enough if we just had the name on the website, but I know that people are generally lazy and it's much easier to just click a link. So I've just put it all in there. It took me quite a long time to put the website together as it is now. Like, I think by the time we had a proper website like we've got at this time, we had released at least 400 patches. So it was a matter of going back and, you know, putting together 400 YouTube clips in, you know, embedding them in the page and whatever. So it took me a long time to get the website to where I want it to be, but I think it's worth it because it's, I mean, now it's a resource for people. I mean, some of the patches are sold out, obviously, but that's, you know, it's still there where people can search through and go and check out new stuff all the time.
And it goes back to the old thing. Like, I don't know about you, but I've lost count of the amount of bands that I've seen on someone's shirt at a gig or like on someone's patch at a gig. And it just gets stuck in your head, especially if they've got like artwork that really pops, something that really catches your eye. And immediately you're like, that art's fantastic. I got to go check this out as soon as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, and I guess the internet age, it's instant gratification, right? That's the name of the game. I mean, back when I was first getting into music, it was tape trading, so everything was really slow, right? It was, you know, the way that I found out about stuff, there was a magazine called Metal Maniacs that was published in the US throughout the 90s and into the early 2000s, and that was like the main sort of resource. And beyond that, it was reading the liner notes of bands that I had already had albums for and seeing what other bands that they thanked. And that was kind of the slow process of finding things. And yeah, I mean, the occasional gig. I mean, I grew up in northern British Columbia, pretty far away from any major gigs. Vancouver was an 8-hour drive south. So I didn't get to that many shows, but yeah, I mean, you'd see, you know, people on the street or whatever, and they'd have a shirt on and, oh yeah, that looks pretty cool. It's got neat artwork. So I'll maybe go and check that out. Right. But I guess back then it was a lot of risk, right? You'd buy a lot of albums that were clunkers and to find the gems. And now it's a lot easier, which is, I guess in some ways, you know, I have the nostalgia of the old way of doing things, but it's also a good thing that, you know, a lot more bands are able to get exposure in ways that you couldn't before. So
that's something that I'm always oddly nostalgic about, even though I haven't experienced that. I reckon the excitement and sort of the almost like a little in-group of that whole tape trading scene and finding out new bands through there. Because like you said, it's instant gratification now. Whereas before it sounds like, you know, you had to put in a little bit of legwork and there was a bit of a process to get to those new bands.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I guess I'm old school, so I like the way it used to be in that sense. But it's also, you know, there's so many bands myself that I wouldn't have discovered otherwise without the internet, right? And there's no going back now. It's here to stay, and it is what it is. So I think it's generally overall a positive thing. I guess in the sense that it's kind of dispersed interest in a way that we probably won't ever see a band like Metallica come up again. And it's kind of, you know, that stadium experience. I mean, you know, how are you going to get that in the future? Lamb of God, Slipknot, maybe, but they're, you know, on the cusp of old school now themselves, right? So, yeah, I mean, I guess it makes it a bit more difficult because people's interests are focused in so many different areas. But from purely from the perspective of being a fan of music, it just means there's so much more to consume, right? There's so many more cool bands that are out there, and yeah, they're never going to end up playing stadiums or whatever, but you're still going to get a lot of great albums and great music to listen to.
That's an interesting point you raise about Metallica and like even Lamb of God and Slipknot on like the stadium end of things. The internet's kind of shot everyone's attention in a whole bunch of different directions. Like there's no, well, it's going to be rarer that you find like one of those mainstay bands that sort of covers a whole bunch of different areas and sort of is more well, obviously you're going to get more well-known ones than others, but none that'll sort of get that crossover potential to go on and do those large shows. And I think you're right with like Metallica, with Lamb of God and Slipknot, they sort of came up early 2000s before the internet really took off. Yeah. And apart from that, I can't think of any other modern metal bands that'd be able to go and do those like sold out stadium shows like those ones would be able to.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, certainly, I suppose they're the last of that sort of era, I guess, that, I can't think of any, bands that have formed in the last 10 years even that would be at that sort of level, right? And I mean, I guess that, in some ways, at least here in Australia, the idea of a stadium show is far off in the future. It's just not on the cards right now. I know things are going back to relative normal in the US and Canada and Europe, but I mean, it seems like a bit of a pipe dream to even get to a local show at this point for us. But I mean, those big shows, I mean, there's something for them. I've seen Metallica at, I think the last time I saw them was 2016 at the GM Place in Vancouver. I was still living in Canada at the time. And, it's fun to go to great big shows like that. Seeing Maiden, always, the big stage show that they put on. But I think there's something about small, club shows as well that it's, I think the very last show I saw before everything went to shit was Obituary in Sydney. And it wasn't that big of a venue. So it's, it's nice to be a little bit up close and personal with some of the bands. I saw I Hate God. They played here in Newcastle and, maybe 70 people showed up to that, which is just wild there. I mean, I love I Hate God and
I'm the same. They're fantastic.
Yeah. So those small shows, there's something about those too. I mean, I Hate God, they put on a great show for 70 people that were there. Right. And lucky us kind of thing.
Where did you go see that Obituary show in Sydney? That was the one was that the anniversary tour they did?
Yeah, it was. They played Cause of Death, the whole album. I can't remember the name of the venue. I'm bad at that sort of thing, remembering names. And I haven't been in Newcastle that long. We only moved to Australia 2.5 years ago. So I mean, it was, the country was all brand new to me, and it seems like that was over a year ago now, and the last year just seems like a blur. So
it's honestly, it's all sort of turned to shit. I thought I was real clever. I was living in far north Queensland for a while, and I was like, I'm going to move back down to southeast Queensland. It's going to be great. I'm going to see so many gigs. There's so much stuff that I want to go do. And then as soon as I moved back, like basically a week later, everything shut down. And the only gigs that I've been to was like a mate of mine played a little show on the side of a highway because he's in a folk punk band. And like another one that I went and saw at a pub, but it was really weird because you had to sit down for the show. So like, I don't know about you, but I can't wait till it all opens up again. And then I got James, who runs Cave Dwelling with me, being like, sending me all these messages because he lives in the States. And he's like, I'm going to this gig. I'm going to this gig. I'm like, you absolute bastard. I've got nothing over here and you're spoiled for choice.
Yeah. Yeah, we're paying for it now. I mean, while the rest of the world was in a disaster sort of scenario, we were all seemed very insulated over here. And now Sydney's just gone absolutely bonkers with COVID. So yeah, while it's frustrating to see everyone else opening up and us just getting into the thick of it now. But I mean, hopefully we turn a corner soon and things start to improve and we can get back to life as usual as well.
I want to get back to the website because one thing that I saw on there, which was really cool, was your 35 years of death metal. It hasn't been, I think you got up to like 2007 in the list. But like you said, you've been a fan of this since like 12, 13 when that death record come out. Was this just a way to sort of document all the great death metal records that came out for people checking out the website?
Yeah, I mean, I've got to the end, so it is up to the year 2000. I posted it on our Facebook page, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago now. So I've just been behind. I've been so busy with other things that I haven't been able to get regular updates. So you've reminded me now. I think the last one, 2007 was probably Monstrosity or something was the last entry. And so I'll try and update it this weekend to put up 2008 and 2009. And from there, I think if I'm remembering Bolt Thrower, Those Once Loyal would be my 2008 pick. But yeah, I mean, it's, for me, it was just, I love lists as a collector of music. I make lists all the time. Something my wife makes fun of me for, that there's a list for everything somewhere in the house, and it's usually on paper that I'm just scribbling down little things here and there. But yeah, just a way to document all the albums that, my favorite albums over the years. And I guess to make it more challenging, I've made the rule that only, any given band can only appear once in the list. And
for someone that made like an entire Bolt Thrower jacket, that'd be really hard not to have them on each year that they put out a record.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I mean, for Death as well, Death is my all-time favorite band. And it's like, if I'm going to do a list where one band is allowed more than once, well, there you've got 7 entries from Death, and then maybe there'll be a few, Bolt Thrower and a few other things in there, but it'd make for a more boring list. So I tried to make it a bit more challenging. And I mean, as I've been posting them, I get the critiques. Oh, that's not the best album of this year and whatever. And I'm like, well, dude, make your own list, right? This is my list. And it wasn't that easy to make, to choose one band for each year. I mean, there's some, I think like Deicide, I don't get them in there until Stench of Redemption or something. And, their debut album is pure fire, in my opinion, but I can't remember what I chose for 1990. It was maybe Cause of Death, Obituary. I can't remember, but there's,
Obituary was on the list. Yeah.
Yeah. In some years it's like really thin. There's not that many great death metal releases. And in some years it's just like packed to the gills with great stuff, right? Like 1991, I don't know if you saw the tribute to that year. We did a shirt for that, but I mean, to me, that's the be all end all year for death metal. Basically every, great album came out in that year. And how do you choose one album from 1991, right, to represent that, a year that was the high watermark for all of death metal, as far as I'm concerned.
We just got to put it all on a t-shirt then.
Yeah. So that's what we did.
Now, the other thing that I did want to ask is, like, we've been like sort of mentioning big bands here and there, but the amount of like massive bands that you've put out designs for, and they're all like, from what I can gather, official ones. Some of the bigger bands are a little bit more stringent, a bit strict in regards to like intellectual property and copyright and that sort of stuff. Or do you just hit them up and be like, hey, this is a sick patch that we've done. Would you be cool with us putting it out? Like, what's the process of getting the tick of approval from like those bigger bands?
Yeah, I mean, from the big bands, it's not easy. There's a lot of red tape behind the scenes. I mean, sometimes for example, Anthrax, we announced them a few months ago and I still haven't got a patch out yet. It's just, there's a lot of red tape. In those cases, it's working through a licensor. So, I'm not in touch directly with Scott Ian or anything like that. It's working through a licensor to get the approvals. And there's just a lot of stages in between. It's first, convincing them. I guess initially the first two really big bands we did was Maiden and Slayer, and it was a matter of doing a pitch, right? Like, this is what we're all about. This is the kind of product that we produce. This is why I think it'll sell. This is the estimate of how many I think will sell. What do you think, right? And the reason why these bigger bands work through licensing agents is that, and it's really hard to get in touch even with, directly with their management. For mid-sized bands, you can get in touch with their management. But for bigger bands, it's like, even the management, they don't want their contact information out there because they'd be getting, unsolicited emails all the
From
time.
everyone, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I had a guy message me saying, "Oh, I've got this great name for if Maiden does a retirement tour at some point, I've got a really great name for it. Could you pass it on to them?" And it's like, dude, I'm not in touch with Bruce Dickinson. I'm not even in touch with management. I'm working through a licensing agent because, as great as your name might be for their farewell tour, they probably don't want to hear it, right? Like, they've got their own ideas and whatever. So it's convincing that licensing agent. And if they like the idea enough, then they'll pitch it to the band or pitch it to management. Management will pitch it to the band. And then, then it gets to the design stage where we'll run some designs by them. Some get approved, some don't, various reasons. Some they want revisions on, that kind of thing. And then it goes to the sampling process. So that's, if people are wondering why it's so slow with smaller bands, they're happy. They've seen the product that we've put out. They don't necessarily need to see a sample before we release the final product. But a band like Metallica, they want to make sure that, it's representing their brand and band in such a way that it's not, lowering the quality of what people have come to expect. And, so yeah, I mean, it just takes a lot of time and behind the scenes sort of work to get those things done. When we started, everything we do is official. I mean, we don't do bootlegs. Everything is on the up and up. And, for a lot of the smaller up and coming bands, and for the first set of patches that we did for old school death metal bands from the 90s that most people had forgotten about, it's just a matter of getting in touch with the members themselves and seeing if they're interested, kind of thing. That was the process. And I mean, it takes it might sound easy, but it's a lot of work to keep up with, to be honest. That it consumes, most of my free time is doing research on who is the person to contact, and then coordinating all the designs behind the scenes, making sure the timing is okay with manufacturing and getting it all ready, loading all the stuff up onto the website. I mean, all of it just is an inordinate amount of time to do. And then all the mailing, of course, as well, which is now basically my wife's full-time job. Marnie, she does all of the mailing herself now. And I mean, we could, without her support and without Chalo, who's doing the videos and some of the advertising stuff for us, and Robert doing the designs, like, it only works because there's a team of us doing it, basically.
And you go through all that process and post it online for some idiot to be like, why is this not hand sewn? Why is this not hand woven? What have you gone and done? I've seen
the usual
many
is, go ahead.
No, I was about to say, like, I was chatting to one of the other guys, and I was like, I've got this chat lined up this afternoon. Is there anything you want me to ask them or put forward? And he goes, give him a bit of rope to go off about the guys that are sitting there being like, why is this not hand woven? This crazy intricate patch. It's not hand woven. What are you doing?
Yeah, the big one that sort of gets to me is like, we go through all this work behind the scenes, and we'll announce a patch, and it's like, okay, we're super happy about it. And the first comment is like, oh, why'd you choose that album? Why didn't you choose a different album? Right. And it's like, well, maybe that other one's coming, but this is what we're doing right now. Right. And it's like, it's again that, the age of instant gratification. People sort of expect everything all the time. And, there's only 24 hours in a day, and I'm only awake for maybe 16 of those hours. And we can only do as much as we do, sort of thing. We're putting out, I think, about 40-45 designs a month, and I think at this point it's fair to say that we probably released more patch designs than any other company in the history of the planet, right? At least for metal patches anyways. So I mean, we're busting our asses doing it, and hoping that people are happy with what we're doing. And it seems that the general consensus people are pretty stoked. I mean, there's some bands that do really, really well and some that don't, and that's okay. I mean, for me, I don't do a patch unless I support the band, kind of thing. And if it doesn't sell enough copies to justify its existence, well, maybe another band has done a few more and we break even on that one. But I mean, the initial impetus for all of this was I wanted patches, that I could represent on my own vest, and that's still the fundamental philosophy. Is eventually, as I said, I've just got mountains of patches, sort of thing. But one day I'm going to make this quilt, and one day I'll make, maybe when I'm retired, I'll make 50 vests or whatever out of all these patches that we've made. So.
And it seems like people are responding well, because every couple of months you'll post a little update on Facebook, and the shading on the map where Pull the Plug has gone is slowly just growing and growing. Like, I think the most recent update, someone had picked it up in like the United Arab Emirates. And for a small knit crew of like 4 people in Newcastle, that must be some pretty mind-blowing stuff to think that someone, over the other side of the world in a completely different time zone is rocking one of your patches. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool. All over the world. Africa is still a bit of a dark zone for us, I suppose, but we have sent patches there. I mean, Kenya and Morocco, we've sent patches to, South Africa. So it's not like Africa is not represented at all. There has been, some countries where folks have bought patches there. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool. Every now and then, I think we've covered off all of the main sort of metal countries, Finland and Sweden and Norway and that sort of thing, obviously. But it took us a while in the US to get North and South Dakota for whatever reason. I guess metal's not huge in those 2 states, but
I can't say I know enough about American geography to be able to work out that. But yeah, it just seems like 2 states out of 50 odd that you took a while to get. Must just be one of those weird things in the ether.
Yeah. But we're not all here in Newcastle either. We're actually an international crew. Chalo is in Melbourne, but he's originally from Colombia, and Robert, our designer, is based in Romania. And then the manufacturer is in China, and we're here in Newcastle, but I'm Canadian. My wife is Kiwi, and so we're an international group to begin with.
Well, it gives you a bit of a leg up on being able to spread the Pull the Plug patches empire across the world.
Yeah, it's been fun to see it grow, and to see. I always get excited when we are able to cross off a new country. So I think one of the most recent ones, Vietnam, we finally got one there. I've got a guy in Mongolia who really wants to buy patches, but shipping from Australia to Mongolia is closed right now, so I'm not able to do that for him.
Damn.
But hopefully that'll open up soon, and we can cross Mongolia off as well.
It's just one of those little things that you wouldn't think about until you get an order from there, and you kind of have to sit there and try and work out the logistics of actually getting the stuff out to a place like Mongolia.
Yeah. I mean, last year was rough in terms of, there was countless number of countries that Australia Post wasn't shipping to. So we had I've got a dresser in our spare bedroom that was just filled with envelopes that we couldn't send, just waiting for shipping to open up again. So most of those have cleared now, thankfully, but there's still a few. I can't even remember what countries. Maybe Ecuador, or I don't know, somewhere in South America where there's a few that are still sitting in there that we haven't been able to send yet. But yeah, I mean, other countries in South America have opened up. So Brazil we can send to again, and Chile we can send to. So it's better than it was last year, that's for sure.
I realize we've gotten like half an hour in the interview, and I haven't actually mentioned like the impetus or why we started this bit of a conversation anyway. You had a really big drop of patches at the start of July. Could you talk us through some of the bands you've got on there? What ones you were really keen on making in particular? Which ones have been requested a whole bunch?
From the July drop?
From the July, unless there's a brand spanking new one that's come out and I'm unaware of.
Oh yeah, we've got, so it's hard for me to keep track of. Yeah, I've just opened up my spreadsheet so I can look at what we've been doing. So yeah, August isn't released yet. That'll probably be around the 12th to 15th, somewhere around there is the projection. I mean, that's one thing people always ask, like, why don't you announce the release date sooner? And it's like, as soon as I know myself, kind of thing. And I don't want to announce it until we've actually got the patches in hand, because as we know, shipping in the world is pretty screwed at the moment. And, there's all kinds of variables where things get stuck along the way, or sometimes we've had things that have been rerouted back to China because someone else in the container that we've had our shipment in had something illegal in there. So every single thing that's in that container has to go back to the original. And that's like
after you got them printed as well. Like you've said before, the sheer amount of like man hour that actually has to go into getting these designs off the ground to start off with.
Yeah.
And then getting to that point and it being sent back, you can't be like, oh man, I can't win.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's frustrating, but 2020 has been the year of rolling with the punches for everyone. So we're kind of used to it by now, but yeah, I mean, the emails that come in sometimes, it gets a bit frustrating when people, didn't get the memo that we're in a global pandemic and mail is slow and that kind of thing. So sometimes I get annoyed by that, and I'll make a frustrated post on the page or whatever. But most people are good about it. In terms of the releases, I'm just looking at it now, and I guess last month, what did we do? That controversial Barbados patch. That was, I don't know if you saw that one.
I did. They some very cleverly placed emojis on the advertising of that one, that's for sure.
My wife was calling that one cheek spreader instead of bolt spreader. That was her name for it. But I thought that was relatively amusing. Arch Enemy, Mike Ahmad has been great. I mean, that's one band that I'm able to have, a bigger band where I've got direct contact with the band member themselves, and stoked to be able to do another Arch Enemy patch. We did Cypress Hill, which was a curveball, I think. Not for everyone, I suppose, but those of us who grew up in the early 90s, you couldn't avoid Cypress Hill, and fun to be able to do that. That one kind of came along with the Metallica deal in some ways. It's the same licensing agent there. So,
cool.
We just, we saw them on the roster and just kind of thought, well, let's see how people respond to this. And the response.
Once you're in that sort of fold and you see opportunities come up like that, you kind of have to think, well, I'm already in now. It might take me, another 3 months to track down this licensing bloke. Why not give it a shot? Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So there was a few different ones, like Within Temptation came in with that. I mean, they're not, maybe not for everyone who's into hardcore death metal or whatever, but I think the patch design was cool. And, some people appreciate symphonic metal, so we gave that a shot. We're going to be doing Epica. I think next month we've got an Epica patch coming out. So, just trying to branch out a little bit. I mean, the core will always be death metal. That's what I'm most passionate about, but it's fun to do different things. Just looking through, let's see, what else did we do? Inhuman Condition. I think they're, one of the up and coming. Obviously, they've got Terry Butler, who has a long history of, being a death metal superstar, playing in Death and Obituary and that sort of thing. But an up and coming band, the guys from Gore Gang in that band. And I think it's a super cool new album. So I was stoked to do that. Motorhead, we did our first Motorhead patch last month. So that was cool. We've got more coming from them. A Nevermore, a band that I think is just criminally overlooked, right? I think Nevermore is like one of the best metal bands in the history of the genre. And, you know, sadly, Warrell Dane passed away a few years ago. And, you know, they broke up a few years before that. But I think just like an amazing, amazing band. So I'm stoked to be able to do patches for them. Ragnarok, I mean, breaking into a bit of the Norwegian black metal. People have been asking us for a long time.
I know.
Why is
You've got a Dark Throne one coming out. You've got a Dark Throne one. I might have to buy another vest for that because I saw that back patch and I was like, holy shit, man. I'm so keen.
Yeah, stoked to have a deal with them. I mean, that's pretty cool. We've got a long-term deal with them. So we've got a couple of years worth of Dark Throne in store for people, which is, super cool. One of my favorite bands too. I mean, legendary band, right? In terms of, the Norwegian black metal scene. And they were actually the first black metal band that I had ever heard. So I was way into death metal at the time. And it was A Blaze in the Northern Sky. A friend of mine had bought that album, and we thought it was just ridiculous at first, like the corpse paint. Never seen anything like it, right? I mean, there was King Diamond and he was doing his thing, and that was the only person that was even close to wearing that kind of face makeup and whatever. And then just hearing the music, it was just like way over the top, right? Totally different direction than most of, the entire death metal scene and what they were doing in terms of production and aesthetics and everything. And it just was captivating for me at the time. And I got in, Emperor, all those bands really got into that scene in the early 90s or mid 90s, I suppose, as well. But stoked to start doing some of those bands. We've got Mayhem signed up now as well, and Marduk, some of the other classic black metal bands coming up as well. Haven't been able to get Emperor yet. I mean, I'm hoping that could be on the horizon at some point. One of my all-time favorite bands, but so far no dice on that one.
So do you have a laundry list of bands that you want to tick off by the end of however long this runs for? You've knocked over some pretty big names. Are there ones that you're sitting there scheming and plotting on how to get them?
Yeah, I mean, we've got lots of things in the works. There's a few that I haven't announced yet. A few signings that we've done. There's that I'm keeping a lid on for now. Really big bands kind of thing that I think people will be hopefully excited about. But yeah, I mean, there's some that that I'd love to be able to do, but so far we haven't been able to make contact. I mean, Cannibal Corpse, we've tried and haven't been successful, but obviously,
When you look at your roster and go, Cannabis Corpse, it's close, but it's not quite there.
Yeah. My wife's sister, she said, "Oh, can you send me some patches?" She's a metal fan as well. And she's like, "Okay, I want a Cannibal Corpse." And Marnie's like, "Well, we haven't done that yet." And she's like, "Oh yeah, you have. It says on your website." It's like, no. But yeah, so Cannibal Corpse, I'd love to do. I mean, I'm, fingers crossed, maybe that'll happen at some point. Death, Morbid Angel, Obituary as well. So some of the biggest Deicide, some of the biggest names in death metal, we haven't been able to land yet, but we're working on it. I mean, I'm always trying to figure out ways. There's, always more than one way to secure a license. It's not always necessarily directly through the band. You can sometimes find other avenues to do it, but we try. We're working on it.
Slowly but surely. And like you said before, like the process of getting them, you don't always just be able to go through the band. You got to go through the licensing, and then by the time you end up announcing it, a couple of months to a year could have passed. So it's just, and I know organizing interviews as well, occasionally you send emails off and they just get lost to the digital ether, and you kind of go, well, all you can do is follow up with them. You've sort of done as much as you can at that point. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's I think, one of the most common stories for us. People will ask, "Oh, what about this band? What about that band?" It's like, yeah, I asked them. I tried. I never got a response. I mean, sometimes we get a flat no as well, which is fair enough. I mean, some bands, maybe they don't like the patches. Maybe they just want to do it themselves. Whatever reason they have, some bands decline. For me, though, I think it's a great promotional outlet. I guess Metallica doesn't need the promotion kind of thing, but for me, Metallica, I grew up on Metallica. I still love Metallica, and for us to be able to do those, some people say, "Oh, that's sellout" kind of thing, and I don't look at it like that. I look at it as a conduit to getting people into heavier music, right? They might come to pull the plug patches initially to get a Metallica patch, but they'll look around on our website and we've got all those, as we talked about before, all the links up to check out the music. Maybe they'll start checking out other things and get into some of the other bands as well. So it works both ways. I mean, for the bigger bands, it's great to have them on the roster, and the smaller bands as well, because it provides exposure to them that maybe they wouldn't get otherwise, kind of thing. I can't even count the number of times people have gotten in touch and said, "Oh, I discovered this band only because you made a patch, and I thought the patch was really cool and wanted to get the patch, but couldn't do it unless I checked out the music first, checked out the music, it was awesome, and bought the patch," right? So yeah, I mean, those stories are the best, when people are actually discovering the music and connecting with it, and the patch is just sort of a medium for people to connect to the band. So,
and it goes back to what you're saying before, like you found out all the bands that, from going to a record store, checking it out, looking at the liner notes, seeing shirts, seeing patches. I guess it's just an updated version of that now, with the benefit of being able to go online. If someone comes in for a Slayer or a Metallica patch and they see, look, it's sold out, but my example is going to be that Wicked Blood Incantation one that you did a while back. And like they find out stuff through there. So it's just another avenue of doing stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess the way that, there's still vinyl collectors, and there's people who swear by tapes, and obviously people still buy CDs, but a lot of the way that music is consumed now is digitally, right? And so we don't have that same sort of tangible physical object like we did in the past, right? Where you would have an LP or a CD or whatever and be able to look at the liner notes, hold it in your hand or whatever. And I think in some ways, at least for some people, maybe the patch has replaced that's their connection to the music, right? The music is still what matters most, obviously, but to have that, physical object in their hand, and they can put it on their vest or whatever, that it's just that it makes it a more tangible thing for them, I suppose. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've been really surprised at how successful this has been in terms of people's appetite for patches. And I always just kind of think, well, maybe tomorrow people will just forget about patches and decide they're not into them anymore. But I mean, every month that we release things, generally there's every now and then there's a band that doesn't sell that well, but most of the times things go, super well. And it's been, I think it's just a benefit all around. The fans get something, the bands get something out of it. And, if we make a little bit of money on it as well, especially for my wife and the amount of hours that she puts into mailing everything out, then, it's a win-win-win all around, I suppose.
And basically it's not a bad result after making, your own patch for a bolt thrower one. You've kind of got, you're sharing that joy with other people now.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the next holy grail is being able to do official bolt thrower. I don't know if that'll ever happen. They don't, finding official bolt thrower merch is like the, next to impossible at this point, especially since they're not a band anymore. But even when they were a band, I mean, there's the legend of a bolt thrower t-shirt, right? That you could only get them at the shows and that sort of thing, that they were never available online or never through mail order or whatever. And I'm fortunate. I've got a few official bolt thrower shirts that I've been able to get from shows. I never had a chance to see them myself, but I had a buddy who was able to get to see them and picked up some shirts for me. So it's nice to have some official product from them, but it would be really cool if there could be new official product from them as well.
And
So,
especially if it comes out of your camp. And I don't know whether you've ever done this, but have you gone down the rabbit hole of vintage metal shirts on Etsy and just cried at how much they cost?
Oh yeah, I can't do it. I mean, I've got way more metal shirts than I need, but I could never justify spending that much money on vintage shirts. It's like, and there's some great, producers out there like Music Kados. They're doing new shirts now that, are on par with the vintage stuff and for, the old school bands as well. So yeah, those are the shirts that I buy. $25 instead of $250 is more my speed.
And like the most expensive one I ever saw, and it was a bolt thrower one as well, and I think it was like $350, $370, and you kind of just sitting there going like, oh, that's a cool as fuck shirt, but like that's that's about a month's worth of rent right there. I can't justify that.
Yeah, it's bonkers. I mean, I don't know who buys that stuff, right? Like Kanye West and what, the Kardashians, maybe that's it, right? You see them wearing these metal shirts now. I mean, I don't know who can afford that kind of stuff. It's pretty bonkers. But yeah, I guess with patches as well, some of the vintage patches now. Robert, our designer, was telling me the other day that a Morbid Angel vintage back patch was going for €350. And that's just like, it's mind boggling, right?
I don't even want to think about the conversion rate on that one either. That's like close to $700 right there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's absolutely insane. Like, yeah. Anyways.
Well, that's basically all the questions and everything that I've had lined up for you. You've said you've got another release coming in August, and there's a few more things down the pipeline. Is there anything you wanted to bring up that we haven't covered, or something that you wanted to have a chat about?
No, I mean, just thanking people for the support and not just the support of us, but the support of metal. I mean, it's my lifelong passion, and I'm just, if someone told me as a 12-year-old or 13-year-old when I was first getting into this sort of music that it would still be around and still be relevant, 30 years on kind of thing, I probably wouldn't believe it, right? Death metal musicians were all, 25 and under back when it was first a thing, and now they're pushing 60 or above kind of thing, many of them. And yeah, it's just wild that this is all still around, and I'm just stoked that people still care about it. So yeah, it's pretty awesome. So,
we were lamenting the internet a bit earlier on, but it does make it a lot easier to keep cultures like this alive, to keep things like this going. And there's a ton of stuff coming out, but you can also go back and listen to those classic bands. It's a hell of a lot easier. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that it's a renaissance, right? And it probably wouldn't have happened without the internet. That all those great albums like Dismember, like An Ever-Flowing Stream, that now people are going nuts for, right? That this is something that 15-year-olds and 16-year-olds are discovering for the first time. I think it's only possible because of the internet. I think without that, maybe some of this would have gone much further underground than it is. But yeah, it's pretty cool. Well, I appreciate your time, my man. I've noticed in the background there, we started talking and it was light, and now it's progressively gotten darker and darker as we've had a chat. But yeah, again, I really appreciate your time. Thanks for having a chat to Cave Dweller Music. It means a lot.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks for doing what you do.